Fuck, I was muted. Okay. Hello, welcome everyone to Bluespan's Dota 2 stream. We still have 3 streams left before my vacation. So enjoy while you can, guys. Hello, Adrian. Nicholas, I'm gonna be gone for probably a month.
Your turn to ban. Five seconds remaining. Your turn to pick.
Hello, Vineet. Well, Nicholas, I might be able to stream next month. I'll try my best. I'll try.
5 seconds remaining.
I think I can probably pull it off here and there. But yeah, you're gonna be comparatively more bored at work. Oh, where are you going, Vineet? Yo, Varun. Right, okay.
Your turn to pick.
What time, KS? What?
Seconds remaining.
Hi, Roland.
5 seconds remaining.
Play some DK.
Your turn to pick.
If you want to see my time, type in exclamation mark time. Where are you going, Vineet? Hello to Raj. Yes, please not Slardar.
Your turn to pick.
You're going to a beach? But Vineet, aren't you scared that your skin will become even more dark? So dark that we cannot see you in the darkness? I'm good, Leo. How are you? Hi, Cobus.
Your
It's gonna
turn
go only
to
at night.
pick.
Good choice. Ember Spirit. Seems to me they have a lot of magical damage. I may have to go Bracer Pipe. Eggs. Morning Visa, thanks buddy. Hello Monday. Gaben, do you have any vacation plans for the next while?
Dragon
Thanks, Lulin Ferdinand.
onward.
Prepare for battle.
Fucking double down my rank, huh? Alright, let's do it.
The dragon wakes. Do it!
I already did it.
Just do it!
I did it. It's done.
Dragon charge. Our shields shall clash. Who calls the Dragon Knight? Wormblade cuts deep.
30 seconds to battle.
Attack!
Co-op should help us.
By my
That's really good at level 1.
Dragon to the fray. Forward.
Here, grab ours. I'll grab theirs.
Compelled to battle.
The battle begins.
Did I get it? I didn't fucking get it. You fucking shit.
First blood, and the atmosphere's electric. I need no skin. Swiftly. The dragon wakes.
Use yourself.
Onward. Who calls the dragon?
Radiant's courier has been killed.
Yes. By the honor of the ancients. Yes. We cross swords.
I only have right click.
By my blade.
Nice job.
This will live alive. Compelled to battle. I need no sting. Swiftly.
The fuck?
Dragon face scales
Oh shit, dude.
on my eyes.
I overestimated how tanky it was. So 380, so I should have 86.
Yeah.
86. So I can buy an extra set of tangos. It's fine. Wait, no I can't. What? Apparently I can't do math.
Steam your face. Where you go. Onward.
Can you finish this sword, Barry?
The dragon.
Do what? Sorry.
Cancel his parry here. He's just spamming that shit. Doing a lot of damage for no reason.
Okay.
Yes. Swiftly.
Yeah, you'd like to see my black dragon, wouldn't you, Parker?
Who calls the dragon? I am under
Okay.
attack. Dragon to the fray.
Get some levels.
I need no skin. By my blade. Yes. Forward. Of course. I need no steam.
Good job.
Onward. Dragon Eye.
Man, I keep missing these lessons just by a tiny little bit.
By my blade. The dragon waits.
Oh, that was a costly attack.
Who calls the dragon?
I don't even care.
Yes. Swiftly. Not on my watch. Dragon to the yes. Compelled to battle. Higher honor. I'll finish your skull. Dragon skull. Who calls the dragon?
Seriously, you got 2 bashes in a row, you fuck.
Onward.
5 minutes left.
The dragon waits.
A gift from the goddess.
Forward. Compelled to battle. I need no steam. I'll knot your skull. By my blade. Yes.
Back.
Dragon to the fray. Attack. No. Yes.
You suck me, bitch.
Invisibility.
We cross swords. Dragon out. The dragon waits.
Okay, it's my turn to bully you.
This will live my life.
Yeah, you better get the fuck out of here.
By the honor of the ancients. Yes.
Oh, you fucking shit. Okay.
Calls the dragon. Swiftly. With honor. I need no steam. It's not time yet. By my blade. Forward.
Oh, battle fury.
Compelled to battle. Yes. Wormblade cuts deep. A shield shall clash.
I'm waiting for you. Oh, thank you.
By the honor of the ancients.
Your top tower is under attack.
We cross swords. I soar. Dragon to the front. The dragon wins. I need your speed.
Regeneration.
Now not your skull.
Oh, you shrine, did you? Okay.
Fly by night. Dragon out. I'm under an honorable device.
Oh man, you guys are fucking adorable.
Mine.
Easy dodge trap.
That's all
Wow.
done.
Structures are fortified.
Chrono's down. They don't have Chrono. Just saying.
Yes.
They have vision 8.
Dragon.
You fucking shits.
And you keep it.
By my blade.
Yeah, you want some more of this? You remember last time? He doesn't. No Chrono. No Chrono. Good job.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Stop it! Gotta take my last hit, motherfucker.
Yes.
He might have Chrono this time.
I need no speed.
I need some help. I'm dead.
The dragon.
I can strike this kid, hey?
Should I die dead?
Oh shit.
Your top tower is under attack.
Ah, he doesn't have Chrono anymore.
It's fine.
Waste drone. Good.
Sorry, I could have killed him. I didn't realize you're gonna stun first.
Yeah, no, we should have talked about it, but it's fine. It's a fun game.
Wembley. Cut deep.
Invisibility.
Our shield is stronger. Who calls the dragon? Unstoppable.
Tick bottom, please.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack.
For the honor of the ancients.
Nice job.
The enemy's bottom tower has fallen.
Yes. The dragon waits. You need no guard.
Yeah, you know what, guys? Maybe I will get eggs.
Fly by night.
Your top tower is under attack.
Swiftly. Forward.
Holy fuck, that Ember shit. Ember has nothing.
The dragon waits. I need no steam. By the shield of Slayer. Dragon charge.
Your top tower is under attack.
Yes.
Coming mid.
By my blade. Dragon to the fray.
Fuck, man. Yeah, I don't know how you swap.
The enemy's middle tower has fallen.
I guys gotta use.
Loaded to the gills.
Your bottom tower is under attack. Your bottom tower is under attack.
Alright, that's enough. Wait, there's a catapult here, though.
Worthy treat.
Who calls the dragon?
Oh, shit.
Pain without consequence.
Wasted.
Yeah, more ways than one.
Who calls the dragon?
The enemy's top tower has fallen.
Oh, I have eggs at 16
Radiant
minutes.
structures are
Bam, baby. I got eggs,
By
guys.
my blade.
Oh, shit.
Yes.
fit for a queen.
Oh, I have level 3 dragons.
The dragon waits.
I'm just looking out if you can fight this,
Die!
Good kill.
You fucking bitch.
Wait, you're still not dead?
Let's make this Hobbiton cleaner.
Guys, yes, you guys should learn how to read a little bit or do your studying. Eggs DK adds +1 to your current dragon level. So my current dragon level is only 2. I'm only level 13. So it becomes the level 3 dragon, and when you hit level 18, it becomes the level 4 dragon.
Shall be proven this day.
Study, motherfucker.
I need no steed.
Okay.
I'll notch your skull.
So neat. Thanks for subscribing.
Compelled to battle. I'll note this downfall. Yes. The dragon waits. For the honor of allegiance. I need no speed.
No, don't root me, bro.
This will look
Ember Trials. Yeah, that's very old meta.
fly by night. I'll take that.
Arcane Rune bottom. You guys gotta initiate properly, fuck. I'm coming.
Your top tower is under attack.
The dragon waits. I need no speed.
Oh, I didn't get the last hit.
I missed it.
Your top tower is under attack.
My shield shut down. Dragon to the
Worthy tribute.
Ah, they're going on me. That's fine. Fucking hell.
arrows with the wonder. Swift.
They don't have Carl. I'm gonna blink on Carl.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
Hey, we still need tier 2.
Your bottom tower is under attack. Enemy's top tower
What the fuck's wrong with this guy?
is under attack.
I'm gonna blink on this guy in 1 second. I'll stun first, okay? Okay. Good job.
Radiant structures are fortified.
Shield for silent. cross swords.
The enemy's top barracks has fallen.
Of course.
The enemy's
Correct.
top barracks has fallen.
Compel.
Dire's turret has been defeated.
Who
Your
calls?
middle tower is under attack.
He almost didn't have him.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Yes.
Oh shit.
Yes. The dragon waits.
I can blink in 2 seconds.
And they got a ward right there.
Oh, you motherfuckers. All right. Yeah, people keep getting confused about the Black Dragon, so we will read and educate ourselves on the DK eggs together. Increases the level of your ultimate. Adds a 4th level Black Dragon. Has 50% more crows. Actually, it doesn't say it in here. But if you read the patch notes, it says that it increases your dragon level by 1. By whatever you currently have, you add that plus 1. That's how it works, guys.
Dragon rises from the ashes it has sown. Forward. We cross swords. Awaiting tribute. Attack. Powers.
The level of your dragon, not your actual hero level.
Dragon to the fray. Compelled to battle. Who calls the Dragon Knight?
Thanks for the madness.
Wembley, touch deep. Yes.
I have a lot of patience, Gaben. A lot of fucking patience.
I need no steed.
Let's go Roche or something.
By the shield of Slayer.
They really can't fight us, so let's end the game.
Alright.
Onward. My mind. Yes. By my blade.
Can you not backseat game, Steven? Why do I always have problems with you, man? Fuck. You don't know how to listen, do you? Dumb shit.
Who calls the dragon?
Let me do it solo.
God damn it.
God damn it, indeed.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Yeah, we should have backed out. They knew we were there.
Fortified.
Should've.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower has fallen.
Hey, Lawrence Lynn. You don't know this guy like I know him. So actually, it was necessary.
Sleeping dragon wings. Yes. Dragon charge. Steel wings battle.
Wait, he's on.
Hi, Hassan.
Agents.
I'm good, how are you?
Dragon to the fray.
Hi, Christopher Wong. Hi, Haku. Get AC.
The enemy's
I don't know
middle
about
tower
that.
has been denied.
Shields shall clash. Dragon out. Forward. Yes. Control to battle. No go. Where you go? I need those skills.
Worthy tribute.
By my blade. The dragon waits.
Hey, Naga needs help.
Compelled to battle.
It's good waste adult.
Can I fucking click this shit? I haven't packed it, Haku. Yeah, maybe I just need DKB. Or Mjolnir. Where's this whole guy? Do the two of you understand what I said to you? Steven, I'll explain to you what you did earlier. First of all, you were backseat gaming. Second of all, I told you not to, and you said absolutely nothing, as if you didn't understand or listen to me. You're like, what the fuck bar damage item? That's what you said, man. Don't fucking backseat game. Jesus Christ. Seriously, this guy's an idiot.
Dragon out. Onward.
I can't read your mind, Steven. Alright, bud?
Forward.
This coddle is so dangerous.
Double damage.
You get it?
Roshan has fallen to the depths.
Who calls the dragon?
fucking fast that shit.
Are fortified.
Wait, you don't have backdoor protection.
Yes.
Here.
Oh, okay. Where? I don't see it. What the fuck, man? Yo, yo, save the DK, not yourself, dude. What the fuck? Oh my god, he had two choices there. He's like, shit myself or save DK. All right.
Loaded to the gills.
Oh, I can? Okay.
Holy shit. All right.
Your middle tower is under
I don't even know what to say. Are real? I'm coming. I'm coming.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Okay, we'll push. I don't think we'll
Has fallen.
Powers abounding.
Grabbing Hyperstone.
Yes. Onward.
Your top tower is under attack. Your top tower has fallen.
Deep. I'll note this down for honor. By the honor of the ancients.
Your top tower is under attack. The enemy's bottom shroud has fallen. Your top tower is under attack.
By the shield of Slayer.
Your top tower has
Coming.
fallen.
Coming towards line. Do we want to push high ground?
Forward.
Doesn't have render.
Yes.
Alright, ready?
You fucking shit.
Enemy's middle tower has fallen.
Okay, man. Okay, buddy. Oh god. Call me out, dude. An Ember Spirit. I don't damage it, dude. I don't do damage.
This world.
Just curious, did you listen to what I said earlier? Man, we only got the range track there. Lawrence, okay, I will explain it one more time, and I need you to reply, okay? Because I hate it when I say something and then people just, they don't say anything. You said that when I called Steven a dumb shit earlier and that was unnecessary. You made an assumption about him and I. And I said to you, you don't know him like I know him. That guy consistently breaks chat rules after being told not to break them. Over and over, and I'm about to ban him, this close to ban him.
By my blade.
And you were defending him, not knowing anything, man. So I tell you, don't make assumptions, man.
I need no steed. I need no steed.
Yeah, what Hoppy said.
Swiftly.
Why am I going to Vietnam? Because I want to go to Vietnam.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
I'll not let this go.
Your bottom tower has fallen. Damage.
Dragon charge.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
Oh,
By my
Enemy's top
blade.
shrine has fallen.
get this cocksucker off me.
Radiant structures are fortified.
Optimism. I don't think it has anything to do with optimism, man. It's just you being a white knight and defending stuff that you don't know anything about. Did Razor have Silver Edge? I wasn't paying attention. Oh, I almost have enough for BKB. Actually, I can sell this Razor. I have BKB. Oh, buddy. Use your fucking song, dude! Oh my god!
Yeah, I probably should have.
Oh my god.
I want to get wards up, I just fucking can't.
No, Vic, thanks for subscribing.
Haste!
I so
Oh, I should have stacked this camp.
we cross sword. One blade cuts deep. Dragon charge. Of course.
Yeah, probably good too.
Attack.
Sheep?
Who calls to dragon?
Yeah, sheep's good.
Let me do rush. I need some
Alright.
protection.
Need to turn off this music so I can think about what I'm gonna do.
Onward.
Hey, VS, get back. You should get back too.
Yes.
Oh my god, look at my supports just fucking.
Come on, get back. I'm not there.
Forward.
Debate this room.
Invisibility.
Illusion. The dragon wakes. Compelled to battle. Yes.
Go out, get cheese.
Your shrine has fallen to the
I'll give you.
depths.
Compelled to battle.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
I'm just going ham. You can swap again.
By my blade. Dragon out. Dragon to the
Chrono.
You wasted your food. Careful for Chrono, guys.
I need no steam.
Hey, get back a sec. Let me grab bounty runes.
Alright.
Yes. Greetings, my friend. I'll take that.
Ooh, I have 34 armor.
Worthy tribute.
They have so much wave clear.
The dragon waits. Swiftly.
Go back.
Careful top.
Who calls the dragon? Forward.
I've got a lot of gold. Anyone know what I should get?
Cheap.
Cheap.
Compelled to battle.
Let me hit 25.
Our note is down for honor.
Your bottom
Be bad
tower
battles.
is under attack.
By the shield of Slayer. We cross swords. Our shields shut down. Who calls the Dragon Knight? The dragon waits. By the honor of the ancients.
Okay.
Forward.
Don't worry about top.
Double damage.
We might be able to siege now. I grabbed the DD. I have BKB cheese.
On.
Just want to fucking stun, motherfucker.
Nice.
Take my damage, motherfucker. You take my damage? Take my damage?
Does that thing give fucking true sight or some shit?
So there is.
Enemy's bottom tower has fallen. The enemy's bottom tower has fallen.
You're dead.
Radiant structures are fortified.
Easy double down. Well, I would say that if they trash talked me at the beginning. But none of them said anything.
Yes.
How dare you?
Yes.
The enemy's
Oh, there you go. That's good. Even though the win.
I need
But yeah. Let's try them.
The enemy's middle tower has fallen.
Yeah, we need some aggro a bit. There's an
I
aggro
am Johnny.
fighter on
Who calls the dragon? Assault Cuirass. Dragon charge. The dragon waits.
Dude, my stun is 5 seconds long. That's
The enemy's
ridiculous.
middle tower has fallen.
I need
Wait, they were
your
gonna.
speed.
Go face
Oh, I think I just hit Legend 7. Ooh. Legend 7. Most hero damage? Me? Really? Are you serious? That's mostly tanky build. Alright, fine, Gaben. Double MMR. Easy. Sounds good, Didi. I'll see you soon, buddy. See you later, Visa. Thanks, man. Yeah, actually, actually Naga's by far the most farmed hero in this game. But this Queen of Pain's kind of poor. In fact, Queen of Pain and the Crystal Main both have very similar farm. My thoughts on tiny eggs. Here, I give you answer to this. I'm kind of surprised I did the most damage though. Like I went 2 bracers, and then bought eggs, and then I bought Blink Dagger. You see how all those items, not a single damage item? And then I bought Mjolnir. There you go, Andrej. Thank you guys. GG. Dude, that Faces Void is so poor. Holy fuck. In fact, Faces Void almost has the same farm as Lion. Did he destroy some of his items? How is he so poor? He's like more poor than the Coddle.
Your turn to ban. Five seconds remaining.
It's okay, Clark. We won't be talking anymore. Alright, so light blue wants to play mid, green wants to play position 4, looks like, and then no one has signed up for 5 safe lane carry or off laner yet. There's no betting right now, Arca.
Your turn to pick. Your turn to pick.
Okay. So maybe I'll play off lane again.
Remaining.
3, please.
5 seconds.
Oh, Sandy.
Remaining.
Shadow Gaming Spirit Breaker. Tundra, why are you so shocked that people like EG? You might as well say, sexy women? Really? Ugh. EG is a classical fan favorite team. That shouldn't surprise you. Right, Haku? Sexy women? Ugh, really? Get that shit away from
Your
me.
turn to pick.
Ugh. No. I like him ugly and fat.
10 seconds remaining.
I gotta fucking pick an off laner, huh? I agree, Namdota. That's why I hang out with you. Oh, shit.
10 seconds remaining. 5
Hey,
seconds remaining.
sexy women and anime, not mutually exclusive. Am I right? Hey! Well, this seems like a good slaughter game. I get 10th pick.
Your turn to pick.
It's okay, Tundra. You're only 19. Teenagers are prone to saying ridiculous shit. Remember the other day, Tundra, you're like 7.22B. Nope. No changes to Dark Willow. That's what he said, right? He said that. And I'm like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? And I'm like, did I remember incorrectly the patch notes? Did I misunderstand? Went to check the patch notes. Right at the top of the patch notes. Dark Willow. Nerfed. Eggs. Basic attack time. Nerfed. Nerfed here. And then he tried to change the subject. He's like, oh, I actually meant the third.
Prepare for battle.
And I'm like, the third what? The third skill. That's completely not what you said. When did I buy a mango?
Look to the foe.
Deepest thanks.
So man, what I'm saying is that you do it to yourself. That's not what nerf means. Nerf means a degrade. Oh my god, Kyle. Have you ever tried using dictionary? Holy shit.
Yes.
30 seconds to battle.
On their tail. Attack. One sky.
The battle begins.
Oh shit. Nice.
I go.
I like how this guy has balls.
No
I like it a lot. That's right. We all got balls here. Blue ball will see him.
Onward. Guard well.
The fuck is this guy doing? Got the same line from last game? Wait a minute, someone's getting charged, eh? Too many creeps. Ah.
Keep a lookout. Face me. Stop it.
Need levels, man.
Yeah, you're right.
Once we get levels, we can go. But I don't have bash yet, even. So there's no point right clicking.
I'm on to you. Vigilance. In over, go ahead. I rush to defend. Double damage.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Ooh, nice.
No delay.
Hit a lot of stats still right now.
Oh, he's only got one agility.
I'm dead now too, yeah. Got a back.
Centurion returns to the fight.
That's great, man. We got this, man. We got this.
Levels, once we get levels, we can stop us with bare last HQ.
Fuck, I can't hear it because music and sound effects. What did he say? Does anyone understand what he just said?
Deep ones guide me.
No, yeah, levels. Hold on.
You're in deep water. Keep a lookout.
I hear donkey sounds though.
No mercy. On their tail. Cowards. Slither.
Oh, you fucking shit.
Patrolling.
Bottom tower is under attack.
Oh, you did. Anyone on a shrine?
You have a shrine?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Shrine.
Delay.
What a sucker. This guy's level 2. I mean 3.
To the fight.
Alright, I'll come top. Slaughter's got some levels now.
Wait, is this guy just not landing his poison or what?
Look to the foe.
Oh, she loses so bad.
Yes. I'm on to you. I rush to defend.
Alright, we got some farm now. Run back top. I'll bring you a salve.
I'm sure he fucking hates that shit.
Guard well.
Oh man. Oh, she's fucking shit.
Dire structures are fortified.
What item should I get, guys?
Face me. To the fight. Look to the foe.
Oh, I think they pulled. Yeah, they pulled.
Deep ones guide me.
Oh, I should get a wand. Why didn't I get a wand earlier?
Keep
Jeez,
a lookout.
forgot.
On guard.
I mean, what else are you gonna do? You're not pulling the lane. You can't pull the lane because she killed the heavy camp. Like, there's not much we can do.
Oh shit!
Okay, well, you're 5 position, aren't you? Can't you buy a sentry? Like, what? What do you mean I'm not doing shit? I'm 2, 2, and 4, bro.
Keep a lookout.
You're just a fucking negative person. Shut the fuck up.
Well, you know, he's not wrong.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack.
Can someone in the stream chat type in Divine Rapier? Thanks.
I'm on to you.
Fish on fish action.
I go.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
Pretty tough.
For the record, I'm not fucking buying Blink.
After them. Deep ones guide me. On guard. Look to the foe.
Oh, that creep. Oh fuck. Creep KS my creep.
Guard well. Onward.
I'm dead. What the? Oh, I thought he would aim lower. I mean, I thought he would aim, yeah, lower, and then I
Not
went
doing
up, and
shit,
then
by the way,
he
boys.
aimed up. God damn it.
You guys know you can taunt while you sprint? The wall stopped my charge. Oy vey.
Return me to duty. On their tail.
Oh, Slark. Oh, you fuck.
Guard well. Vigilance. Shiny as souls. Yes.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Keep a lookout.
Radiant structures are fortified.
No mercy.
There's consolation for it. It's not terrible. I got a back. I got no mana.
To the fight. Haste. Cowards. Vigilance. On guard.
Alright, almost got my item.
Revealed. To the deeps with you. Attack.
Okay. Slark TP bottom.
What else here? Slide. He's got nothing still.
Your middle tower is under attack.
I'm gonna cancel.
Yeah, probably good idea.
I
Although we do have a Bloodseeker here now.
They had a ward. They back because they saw you moving weird.
No!
deep ones.
Tower at least.
I rush to
Your middle tower is under attack.
punch
Yeah, it's gonna move.
The enemy's bottom tower has fallen. Radiant structures.
Oh, I don't have level.
Oops.
Okay, alright, it doesn't matter.
look to the foe.
And Noma?
He wasted arena. The sentry here.
This guy's so fucking dead.
I rush to defend. Face me.
Yo, I got dual breath on me.
Way to
Yeah, I just saw. Should probably just get the tower back.
Should.
yes.
Oh, Slarks can get the runes.
Johnny's.
I go.
This should make my life easier.
Oh, someone already got it.
Keep
The
a
enemy's middle tower has fallen.
deep ones guide me. You're in deep water. To the fight. No delay.
Coming. He's trying to lock you up.
Do you have radiance yet? No. No, this area is a little bit too dangerous to farm.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Cancel
Fucking
TP.
alchemist. Oh, there he
What
is.
the fuck?
Man, I come here for nothing. I literally did nothing.
The enemy's top tower has fallen.
Ah, Jesus.
No delay.
Radiant structures are fortified. Your middle tower is under attack.
Oh. Which one's the big one? Is it this one, right?
Water.
Oh man, I was just starting to charge him. Fuck. Pick it beforehand, man. I'll charge ahead.
Guard well.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Keep a lookout.
I think I'm gonna get nags, guys. I think it's actually pretty good this game.
And the sky.
20-second AoE bash.
Patrolling. Deep one sky.
I don't think it's a good item. My stun is only 1 second.
Go. To the fight.
Bounties, 20
To
seconds.
the foe.
I'm charging out bot. Can we kill Alk maybe? I'm pretty far away still. I have Vessel. Like, we can just blow him up, I think. Oop, Mars.
Oh, coming.
Coming.
It's not time yet. Guard well. No delay.
He's got a Vessel on him.
Patrolling. Monster kill.
Whoa, it's getting too deep. I don't like it deep.
I was trying to get him out.
This shit's still going on? No. Too deep.
Get out.
Wait a minute.
Keep a lookout.
I almost have my eggs. Just want to buy my item. Does anyone know if... Wait a sec. Oh, no teleport for you.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
This should be my last resort.
You want this Bloodseeker? Bloodrun? No.
God, so powerful.
I rush to defend. Face me. Keep a lookout.
Yo, Legger. How you doing, my friend?
Mercy.
Radiant structures are fortified.
Whoa.
2D. Get out, boys. Get out.
Fucking shit.
Your top tower is under attack.
Alright, TP. Fuck that.
Too deep.
The enemy's middle tower has fallen.
Nah, I'm too low. I'm not a part of this system. Oh, we should do Roshan, huh? We have Slaughter on this team. Sucker.
Damage.
To the fight. Your armor melts away. Face me. Slither.
Roshan has fallen to the down.
Nice lot.
You're in deep water. I rush to defend.
Slark's there.
Okay.
Not
Wait,
here.
didn't you say Slark was up here?
Guide me.
No, he's down there.
For the twins. No delay.
4.
Okay.
I can charge top. Charging. Got a blink.
And over your head.
Oh, fuck me. Oh, my bad. Should've ran it.
Vigil. Look there. On their tail.
Keeping. Or charging me. Maybe I shouldn't be. Probably shouldn't be. Go out.
Oh shit.
Fuck, man. Alka's BKB now. We gotta get BKB up on the Bloodseeker. And then I think we can just run at him again. Yeah, I see your build it.
Oh, Silver
Your
Edge.
top tower is under attack.
Yeah, we should be using this Aegis too, honestly.
Wait a minute, where did Alchemist go?
Shouldn't have trusted.
He walked up top, you're farming solo. He's dumb. Like, he's not good.
Lord me
Yeah, they're
back
B-warding everything.
again. Keep a lookout.
Shadow Demon stopped buying wards after he insulted him.
Mercy.
I'm far, but I'm coming.
Oh.
Yes.
We can fight this.
Okay. Whoa, 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 where did he go?
Rolling.
That somebody? You.
The enemy's top tower has fallen.
I rush.
Where'd he go? Ooh, man, I'm a fucking tanky beast.
Oh no. Get out, get out, get out, get out, get out, get out. Oh boy.
Oh,
Two
fuck.
buybacks. I think PA needs a BKB and we just win, yeah?
He doesn't have BKB?
Get a BKB.
Your middle tower is under
Probably
attack.
not. I mean, we got two buybacks out of it. It's not the end of the world.
I think we were diving pretty close to their fountain, if I recall.
Dire's structures are fortified. Your middle
Slow fall back.
fallen. Your top tower has fallen.
Yeah, he balled back. We killed him. Oh, you're talking to Shadow Demon. Huh?
Keep a lookout. In over your head. My
Alright, I guess Angel Yasha.
increases, no delay.
Hey, hey, let's not play Captain Hindsight, you
Illusion.
fucking idiot, blah 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 blah.
Slither. I'm not
Nah, he's just a whiny negative person. That was the real Mars? Of course it was.
well. Look to the foe.
Okay.
Shiny as souls.
Ow.
Dire structures are fortified. Radiant structures are
So they're all
fortified.
top now, okay. I thought someone on our team would have rotated since you saw me charging this Slark literally across the map.
Well, there's this objective we can take bottom. Kara. APA this. Okay.
The veiled oracle chose you.
There's Mars chart, right?
Not yet. Patrolling.
Your top tower is under attack.
You fucking shit. Haha, see you later.
Clear as clean water. Deep ones guide me.
I'm good, guys. I'm good. You so fucking dead, son. You did a shit. I'm dead too. Oh shit, where's PA?
Your bottom tower is under attack.
Slark's a big problem.
Your bottom tower has fallen.
Alright, I need to itemize around Slark now. What is a good item for Slark? PA. It's these items. These items. These items. AC is good. I think PA can man fight Slark, but only if he doesn't get hit by Silver Edge. Does anyone remember Roshan time? No, I think Orchid's not very good against Slark. If he has BKB. I don't remember Slark's items.
Keep a lookout.
Hey PA, I think you just go into Roshan.
Keep a lookout. Treasure this. Onward.
Yes, we come towards Roshan. Yo, JT, thanks, buddy.
Your Shan has fallen to the dust.
Hey, let's get a pick off. Or oh no, let's get bottom. Let's get bottom.
Deep ones guide me. A soldier's fortune.
And you call yourself a real fan, JT? It's too late for that now.
Guard well. Yes. Yes.
The enemy's bottom tower has fallen.
Okay, we have all of our items, right? So should be good. And we have the double catapult, so this is good wave.
I go.
No, no, don't die, okay? Ooh, am I dead? Jesus Christ. Dude, man, we are not able to break high ground, huh? Oh my god, that cheese.
Your top tower is under attack.
Yeah, you know what? Alchemist is stuck. Didn't blink.
Your top tower is under attack. Your top tower is under attack.
See, look at him being negative again.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower has fallen. Dire structures are fortified.
How he's invisible. With Sentry Ward.
Your middle tower has fallen.
Wow.
What the
Got
fuck,
three
man?
shot.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. We lost. We lost.
Middle barracks are under attack. Your middle barracks has fallen. Your middle tower is under
Slaughter has
attack.
bash magical damage? I don't think. No, no, it's physical.
Your middle tower has fallen.
Holy shit, he's going deep.
Your middle tower has fallen.
Oh my god, he can't even kill Alchemist. Shit.
Radiant victory.
Shadow Demon actually did nothing.
He complained a lot.
Yeah.
Good job, Slark. GG, guys. Yeah, you know, this guy's so whiny. Very whiny player. Oh, and I have this feature. We got 10k net worth lead, and then I think this is basically where Slark and Alchemist come into play. This guy says NA Dota lol, but he is playing in NA Dota, is he not? Hey Shadow Demon. People don't like you, because you're toxic. Am I done with my coffee? No. No, Gaben. It's still right here. Did he just tell me to take my own advice? I couldn't read the second part of what he said.
Your turn to ban.
Fuck, my chat. They should make it so that you can still read chat.
5 seconds remaining.
Can someone pause the stream and go back and see what he said? Thanks. And yeah, Leo and I did take typing in school.
Your turn to pick. Your turn to pick.
Okay, so I am okay. I'm okay. Okay. Anyways, I first picked Spectre because we're gonna go back to playing Spectre. I think my prediction is that Spectre's win rate's gonna go up since the games are getting longer. Like towers are harder to push. They get more armor. Towers do more damage. There are less catapults. Catapults do less damage. So the game theoretically should go longer. So we're going to go back to the first pick Spectre and see how it goes.
Your turn to pick.
He said you just lost with OP PA. PA's not OP at all. They're a school for typing? Hey, Repro? It's not a school for typing. It's just typing in school. There's a difference. It's not like you go to this building and then all the typing course. No, it's not like that. It's just a single typing course in school. Maybe that's not what you meant. But anyways, that's not even why I type fast. I just nerded out on my computer a lot. Oh, thanks, JT. Yeah, PA's not OP. She has very average win rate, does she not? Let's investigate this manner. Heroes, meta, Phantom Assassin. Yeah, look, she has very below average win rates. As you can see, all in the mid 40%.
Your turn to
Someone should tell that fucking Shadow Demon, hey buddy, PA is the opposite of OP. In fact, he's so fucking shit right now. So Kunkka should be mid, Weaver off lane, safe lane, Necrophos. So yeah, I guess they put the Weaver and the Bounty Hunter together. Weaver and Bounty Hunter together, okay. Damn, Ancient 7.
prepare for battle.
Position 5 Invoker. So I suppose as position 5 Invoker, you want to focus on Cold Snap, Alacrity, Deafening Blast, Ice Wall. What's another good supporting skill? Yeah, Cold Snap, Alacrity, Deafening Blast, Ice Wall. I suppose the occasional Sunstrike, but then you'd have to Exort. But Exort goes well with Alacrity, I suppose. I think Tornado's not very good.
It's in the bag. Oh,
Hello, Ian.
thanks a lot.
30 seconds to battle.
Oh shit. Oh, you get your stun first? That's so shit, man. Well, I mean, if he gets a stun first, I suppose.
Battle begins.
Yeah, you get your stun first? I guess he could secure the rune with it, although he did not even do that. Okay, then why did he get stunned first? Oh man, it feels good to play Spectre again. I haven't played this hero in a long time. Okay, that's it. Oh my god, what the fuck is his right click damage? 64? Oh, you feed again, man. You feed again. Weaver, kill Weaver. Nice. Yo, man, I'm rich as shit.
お前はもう死んでいる。何？
Haste.
Oh. Oh, fuck. Team, where's the pulse, team? Oh fuck, I didn't need to eat Tango. It's gonna be really hard to pull. Oh, I got one. What? Oh, Dazzle's coming here. Okay.
You let your guard down.
Oh shit. Oh shit.
Your middle
Nice.
tower is under attack.
Come on, man, what are you doing?
Sensing a pattern here.
What the fuck? Yo, man, there's too much action down here. Jesus Christ. Ruins, and I like the shrine bottom things. Oh my god.
There's fortune.
Regeneration.
Shrining bottom. Come shrine. I don't know if I can exist in this lane, to be quite honest with you. I'm not sure I can. I don't know. I have Slaughter and Invoker, so I mean, it's not bad. Kara, Slaughter, get back.
Whatever that was, worth my notice.
Slippery when dead.
I don't know, maybe I need to change lanes. So there is a ward right there. Alright, maybe just jungle. These shits down here.
Illusion.
Alone with you to be rewoven.
Oh my, oh dude, I just got enough mana for my Spectral Dagger.
Our fates were woven from the past.
Midas.
Your top tower is under attack. Your top tower is under attack.
Abante pick up. Ready TP mid, ready TP mid.
Your top tower is under attack.
Why not play Chen? What the fuck? Use your dust. What the? Why don't you use it, dude? What's wrong with this? I don't understand. Four-man gank. Got him.
Inside.
I really hope Bounty Hunter's not on fucking top of me. Because that would just ruin my day. Actually, let's just go back. Demand for donation.
Your bottom
Alright,
tower
Kong.
is under attack.
I think we've had this issue before, right? You want to make a demand, man? You have to make donation, okay? Well, let's be real here. You and I both know you're not willing to do that.
Vigilance. I speak of final.
Oh, this is completely useless ult. See if this guy understands. Understood?
Your bottom
There's
tower
2 tomes
is under
anyways.
attack.
Yeah, I want the other one too.
5-minute cooldown on tome. I suppose you can use them both.
Your bottom
suppose.
tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack.
God damn it, man. Yeah, I am going on vacation soon.
Regeneration.
Hello, Nudge.
Wow. Fuck.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Fuck. Did I see Discord for what?
Your middle tower
There are a lot of
is
things on
under
Discord.
attack. Your middle tower is under attack. Radiant structures are fortified. Your middle tower is under attack. Your bottom tower is under attack.
Yeah, ward.
Burn sucks.
He's over here.
Invisibility.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Ruins.
Your middle tower has fallen. Your top tower is under attack.
Wait, there's another way here. Oh fuck, I missed that creep.
Radiant structures are fortified.
Snow shadow.
Your top tower is under attack. Your top tower is under attack. Your top tower is under attack.
Fuck, I remember why I don't play this hero. He's so boring. I'm in Farmville, guys. I'm gonna be in Vietnam all of June. I don't know how much Vietnam costs. Oh shit. Keep running, I'll slow them down. Oh shit.
Oh, so exposed.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack.
Why is this courier here?
Excommunicated. Monster kill.
Is under attack.
There you go.
Your bottom tower is under attack. Your bottom tower has fallen.
Weaver top. I think he might be back bottom. Weaver might be bottom.
Structures are fortified.
He time lapsed.
Your bottom tower is under attack. Radiant structures are fortified.
Welcome to the secret shop.
Look, there's a Weaver here.
No time lapse. No.
Oh shit. Oh
bottom
my
tower
god,
is
nice.
Let me
under
take
attack.
that, let me take that. Let me take that, let me take that.
That's great, man. Yeah, Timbersaw, try not to be too whiny, okay? Thanks, bud.
My favorite customer.
Your bottom tower is under attack. Your bottom tower is under attack.
Yo, let me farm! Hey, let the Spectre farm.
Your bottom tower is fallen.
Keep running. I gotta slow them down for you. What the? My Spectre's going the wrong direction. Oh my god.
Nice bait. That's it.
Oh my god. Yeah, they added an extra layer of trees.
Your top tower is under attack. Your top tower has fallen. Your middle tower is under attack. Radiant's courier has been.
I'm lagging. What the? I just pressed haunt, dude. I press haunt and I'm lagging. This is terrible. I hope my haunt didn't go through. Oh god. Oh god. Great, look. Oh my god. Terrible, dude. That's really bad. Really bad.
Oh fuck, I blew that one. That's my bad.
Man, I pressed haunt and then I disconnected. That was really bad too.
Your top tower is under attack. Radiant structures are fortified. Your top tower is under attack.
Timbersaw, are you chat muted? Let me guess, you're chat muted, right?
Your top tower has fallen.
Pretty sure it's chat muted. What the? I'm not sure we should fight here, Slider. Okay. So you think you're better than NA people, is what you're saying? Okay, man. That's racist. I'm actually... I haven't decided what... I think I'm gonna get Hood next. No, they have so much magical bullshit that I don't want to deal with.
The enemy's middle tower has been
You think
denied.
NA sabers are pretty good, even in the low rank game? Oh, okay. But then why would you rank so fast in NA servers? That's some interesting logic you've got there, man. They're good, but not as good as me. And Southeast Asia. Slaughter, you have dust? Nice job.
Okay, bro, sure.
Okay.
You're...
Slaughter, come. Alright, Sublad. You're trash talking your own server. Gotcha. Yes, I will use Midas. Oh, what the fuck, Dazzler? You're so dead, bro. Oh shit, that's not right. I'm going to the bathroom real quick. Yeah, everyone forget to use Midas. You guys forget to use BKB and 1 all the time, right? Blah, blah, blah.
Triple kill.
The enemy's bottom tower has fallen. Your middle tower is under attack.
soldier's fortune.
Oh yeah, I'm back. Yeah, mana boots. Mana, anyone? Yeah, that's good. Oh man, that's such a nice piss. I'm top and I'm not with you guys.
The enemy's middle tower has fallen.
Haste.
Oh hey, snail poop. Thanks, buddy.
I would love to see a Necrophos game. Yell soon.
Okay, done. First game it is. Oh fuck. Here. Why is my... Good job.
Dire structures are fortified.
I'm scared of the Necrophos. I'm not even sure we fight this. No, I don't think we even try to take this tower. Alright, Snow Poop, this one's for you, buddy. Boom! Hey Timbersaw. You glad I bought Midas yet? Yeah, that's what I thought. I need screw. Need 100 gold for heart. Alright, I got hurt. Holy shit. Man, they smoked me. Hello, Sunit. Thanks, buddy. I'm gonna be a great dad. Fact. You think I need BKB? Nah, I don't think I need BKB. Nope. You know why? Even though you see me get killed by 5 people right there, that doesn't mean I need BKB. You might think to yourself, oh, if you have BKB there, Necrophos can't kill you and Kunkka can't X marks to spot you. Yeah, that's true. But that doesn't mean I need BKB. Like, I have Heart, I have Mantis Style, I have Hood. I'm gonna have evasion in sec. How much defense do you think I need? You know, the better thing is to not get smoke ganked by 5 people, right?
A soldier's fortune.
Dazzle.
Your middle tower is under attack. Radiant structures are fortified.
Oh shit. Wow, what an amazing combo. Oh, Weaver brought that. I'm gonna haunt sick. I'm gonna haunt.
Back so soon.
Where? Hello? Yeah.
That was almost a disaster.
Yeah. Yeah.
The enemy's middle
You're
tower
back.
dire structures are fortified.
Yep. Yeah.
The enemy's middle barracks has fallen.
Kill the dads
Yeah.
first.
Your top tower is under attack.
Okay. Okay.
Answer.
Smoke weed every day.
Okay. Okay.
The enemy's middle barracks has fallen.
Okay. Okay. Tháng.
Back at one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Invisibility.
Bye bye.
Illusion?
top tower has fallen.
Let's fight, let's fight. Be first after.
Holy fuck, my mom is annoying. Oh, Jesus. Titty fucking Christ. What an annoying woman.
Welcome to the secret shop.
Hey, Invoker, can you get back for now?
Go swap before they find you.
Yo, man, I don't have buyback. I can't die here, Invoker. No, I don't have buyback.
Just go, let's go.
Holy fuck, so damn annoying.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower has fallen. Your middle tower is under attack. Radiant structures are fortified. Your middle tower is under attack. Your
Hey,
middle
it's
tower
okay
has
to give up
fallen.
this Rex. Honestly,
Your middle barracks
give it up.
are under attack.
Don't have to defend
Your
it.
middle barracks has fallen. Your middle barracks has fallen.
We need detection. Maybe you can let them kill me first. I can buy back in hot.
Dust, with the dust.
fucking little shit. I'll buy back Haunt now. Dude, Tiny's not even here.
Soldier's fortune.
Buybacks to the use. Okay, bought back. It is way too late to buy a Diffusal, man. Tiny's dead already. Leave him. Leave Tiny. We have Glyph. We have Glyph in 1 minute. Hey, if you want to do something, you either want to cut the lane. So never mind. Hey, we have backdoor protection. You're not obligated to do anything here. No, they're wasting their time. This is good. This is good.
Your bottom tower is under
Oh my god. Oh my god, we were over there. Can we back it up and heal? Can we?
Help me, help.
Your bottom shrine is under attack. Your bottom shrine has fallen.
Wait, no. Defend high ground.
Radiant structures are fortified.
Dude. I don't have buyback there. That's game losing mistake.
No buyback move.
Your bottom tower is fallen. Your bottom barracks are under attack. Your bottom barracks has fallen. Your bottom barracks has fallen.
I welcome the abyss. Back to light and air. vigilance.
Dazzle's out playing the shit out of us. See, he's always there every single fucking time.
What I was about.
Your top shrine is under attack. Your top shrine has fallen.
No, I'm not. No, I need more damage now. I'm not buying any more defensive items, guys. Is that a factor in opinion?
Roshan has
Oh, that's really bad. And isn't that the third one? If that's the third one, then there's either a refresher shard or there's an Aghanims buff thingy. Oh god, no.
Come on.
Come on, W and TP. Hey, let me see if I can get them to TP back. If they TP back, this is a grid fight. Avoid them for now, please. Let's see if they TP back. And I buy back. Get ready to run at them. They're gonna react to this. Okay.
Just go high ground like you go out.
Fuck, did he just...
Go down. Bad.
I buy back. Oh, Weaver has eggs, dude.
You guys have to kill Vassal. Seriously. He is saving everything.
Get back. Die.
I can't run away from this, guys. You fucking little shit.
Yeah. You have not to overextend.
Wow, man, what a game. It's a really good game. How many buybacks was that?
Go down, Timber, please stay here.
Come on, use more toss, dude. Oh my god, this Weaver, man. That Weaver eggs. Oh, it's not even like he bought it, it's just that he got it from the third Roshan.
Your top tower
Yeah,
has
no.
fallen.
That last Roshan is there. Yo, man, their teamwork is so good. Not gonna lie.
Your top tower has fallen. Your top tower has fallen. The enemy now has
Yeah, no, Dire deserved to win this so bad. Fucking Dazzle, man, screwing us so hard. Man, that egg shard, dude. Doesn't this Tiny have three toss? How come he doesn't use it?
Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower has
Yeah, I
fallen.
think Dazzle's the most dangerous person. Yo, I can haunt in 5 seconds. Alright, I think I'm gonna go on this counter.
Your middle tower has fallen. Your ancient is under attack. Your ancient is under attack.
I never had mana because of this damn Weaver.
Your ancient is under attack. Dire structures are falling.
Damn. Oh man. Oh god. That's such a good game, but I feel so sad. Oh my god. Oh dude, that Dazzle fucked us so hard. And then that Weaver got the eggs shard. Holy shit, that was game changing. Oh hey, I got a Invoker set. Oh man. Oh fuck. Oh, it was the Timber Saw. The Timber Saw was the problem. He actually doesn't do any damage at all. Actually, Tiny did very impressive amounts of damage. Yeah, this Timber Saw doesn't have... What's his farm? 425 gold per minute? MMR's Legend 7. You know, Darrow, this is a position 5 Invoker, right? You can't blame Invoker for only doing 47,000 damage when he's position 5. No, Darrow, your theory is not good. Yeah, I guess we just needed... When did Timbersaw pick? So it was 10th pick Tiny, 7th pick Timbersaw. Okay. So... Why did Timbersaw pick... Let's see, what did they have that made him want to pick Timbersaw? So, but when he had picked Timbersaw, they had the Bounty Hunter, the Weaver, and the Dazzle. Now, why would Timbersaw be a good pick there? Especially when we have Slaughter, right? Like, when you see Slaughter, you usually want to pick a hero that right-clicks, right? But Timbersaw doesn't right-click. I mean, he does, kind of. You get the 100... Does he have 100 damage talent? I think they moved it, right?
Timbersaw!
He doesn't even have 100 damage talent anymore. He doesn't right-click. I don't know, man. No, you guys misunderstand. Yeah, no, actually, it was I first picked Spectre, and then Invoker second pick Invoker, and then he's like, I'm supporting, and then he actually played great. Hey Christian, I don't agree on BKB. Actually, maybe it's not bad. It just changes how you play. But remember that towards the very end there, actually I just don't even have damage. So BKB would be even less damage. Oh man. Hey Christian, buying BKB just for the sole purpose of BKB TP is not a good reason to buy it. And yeah, the position 5 Invoker out-farmed our off-lane Timbersaw while buying wards and smokes, and yeah, no, in fact, this Invoker spent 5,000 gold on support items, and he still out-farmed our Timbersaw. Hey, Christian Hamilton, listen. So, in Dota 2, there are many problems that you have to solve, right? You need to do more damage, you need more survivability, you need lockdown, you need mobility, right? Just because you see one problem or one instance...
Oh, hello, coach.
Your turn
oh, shit.
To ban.
Doesn't mean that you need to solve it. You know what I mean? So, I actually have this comic for this very reason. Can't even fucking alt tab.
Your turn to pick.
Is this what's going on in this game? Guys, my Windows is so buggy these days, I can't even alt tab out of Dota 2. Oh yeah, there we go. So remember, just because you see one problem does not mean that you need to solve it. What you need to do is you need to solve the biggest problem.
I don't think it ruins the game.
I thought I muted this guy.
Your turn.
Or is that a different guy talking?
10 seconds remaining. 5 seconds remaining.
How am I gonna stream with no usable laptop? Well, I have two options, Namdota.
Your turn to pick.
I can go to Internet Cafe. And Lulu is actually bringing her laptop. And I'm not sure if it's powerful enough, but I'm hoping it is. But either way, it's gonna be a reduced version of the stream. Like 720p or something like that with low graphics.
5 seconds remaining. Your turn to pick.
I don't know why there's coach in my game. I don't really care. It doesn't matter. I muted him. Maybe we'll unmute him. Maybe he'll be a funny guy. We'll see. This guy disconnected? Great Heart? Is that him? Oh. Graphics card in description of stream? Yeah, I hope I don't have to do Internet Cafe stream. It's gonna be hot as shit. Hopefully there's air conditioning, and hopefully there's no fucking 12-year-olds screaming playing Fortnite. Oh god, that would just ruin my experience and your experience. But yeah, I'll be on Discord, guys, so you guys can still talk to me on Discord. I'm gonna try to stream to the best of my ability. I have to lane against Timbersaw, right? No, Timbersaw's mid. No, wait. No, LC's mid. Shame nobody you know has a nice laptop that can hardware encode at reasonable FPS. I guess I will use this person's laptop, given the opportunity. That makes sense too. And yeah, I'm gonna be in Vietnam all of June, guys.
Yes.
Prepare for battle.
Don't worry, lads. This one's in the bag.
What do I think about Techie's dispatch? Christian, I don't have an opinion on that.
Run if you can.
Hey Nudge, have you tried reading what it says in the bottom right corner?
That claims the right. Admiral is on board.
Raphael, have you tried reading patch notes? Man, y'all motherfuckers don't read! Go to school, kids! Go to school and learn! Do some reading!
30 seconds to battle.
At last.
And for the record, Christian, I like techies.
Oh no.
Battle begins.
Yeah, clump up for the fucking rune.
Long enough.
Out! Out!
Good idea. Step lively. Your admiral is on board. Right on. First blood is the sweetest. Aye. Step lively now. Your admiral is on board. That's right. I'll do it.
Oh! Oh, shit.
Use it. I'm under attack. Good enough.
Holy shit.
On the way.
What are you doing, Lich? Oh, thought Lich was getting hit by a tower.
Good. Denied. Very well.
Man, this lane is just too
My call compels me.
chaotic.
I can do no less. My strength increases. You are
Thanks,
a
man.
true friend.
Oh shit. You guys have overwhelming odds.
A good choice. I fight. Kill my
What was the point of that? This guy's so fucking ballsy.
Okay.
No! 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 I knew it! When the moment I checked his mana, I was like, wait a minute. He's still got mana. Oh, that was bad.
Time.
Real bad.
Step
Oh, the fucking cow's down here too. 3 bottom. Hope Juggernaut's having a bad time.
Step lively now. Your admiral is on board. Right. Yes. Yeah. Right. Step lively now. Your admiral is on board. Never cross me.
Come on, cow.
Good idea.
Wah wah.
I'll do it.
Oh, this guy's being passive aggressive.
Lively now. Your admiral is on board. It's only proper. Good enough. To battle. Of course. I can do all this. Very well. Step lively. Your admiral is on board. Over.
Your bottom tower.
What's this guy whining about now?
Die now. Step lively now. Your admiral is on board. Attack.
Jesus Christ. I'm going through trees now? That works? Die! Oh! Oh! 3 HP, motherfucker! Oh, you're all dead? You're all dead? That was great. Yo, go grab the runes.
You already got it.
By the outcast blade.
Fuck off, Lich. Where's LC anyways? Oh, okay. Ah! Oh shit! Yeah, I'm gonna go shrine.
Yes. Why not?
Sometimes I think I should leave this lane.
That's right. Feel my blade. Not yet.
So I think this Venomancer's chat muted. He only communicates in chat wheels.
Agreed.
Necrophos 7, Juggernaut 7. Okay.
That's right. Yes.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
Your admiral is on board. Not yet.
Okay.
With a helm like that, Sven, I'd up be my helmsman. A good choice.
Yeah, LC's coming back.
Step lively now. Your admiral is on board. Yes.
Yo, man, this lane
The
too
enemy's
fucking
middle
crazy.
tower has fallen.
I'd like to leave.
Yeah,
Try hard.
of course. I fight. Rain. Attack. You died well enough. I'll do it.
Oh, Midas. Okay.
On the way.
Oh no! 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 I'm out of this lane. I'm done with this lane. Oh shit!
Is under attack.
Oh shit! Ooh, Jesus!
Your middle tower is under attack.
What a scratch. Attack.
Don't take my farm.
Very well. Was a shot at 10. Run it, you can. My code compels me. Okay. Unstoppable. So you say? Wicked double kill. At last. To battle.
Bounty!
Good enough.
Gold from my chest.
Aye.
Why am I going Midas? Because I like money.
Why not?
Your top tower is under attack.
One back.
Okay. What the fuck?
Good.
Monster kill! Godlike double kill.
Your top tower is
I have another stun.
Good idea.
Die, you motherfucker!
tower is under attack.
By the outcast blade. Die now. The reward of discipline.
Dire structures are fortified.
Die.
The enemy's bottom tower has fallen.
Never cross me. I fight. I can do no less. It's more. I claim the right. Right.
Go that way, man. Go farm the screws, okay, bud? Thanks.
Why not? Yes.
What the fuck, dude? What is your problem?
My code compels me.
Necrophos.
Very well. On the way.
That is one less voice in my head.
Step lively now. Your admiral is on board.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
Oh, I don't know about that, Necrophos. Let's get out of here, man.
I'll do it.
They clearly ward your top jungle? I don't know about clearly. Do you have Echo Slam?
Yes.
Your middle tower is under attack.
That's right.
No Echo Slam, huh?
Good enough.
No fucking Echo Slam.
Decent there.
Step lively now. Your admiral is on board.
Dire's structures are fortified.
Yeah, anyways, Timbersaw was invisible. But just because he was invisible and he showed there, does not mean it's warded. Uh-oh. This fucker, the fun police is back. Nah, I don't want to fight this guy. Can we just walk away from him?
Good choice.
Step lively now.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go, let's go.
Nah, I'm gonna go farm bottom.
Forward.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Oh shit.
Ooh, bounty.
Yes. I take that. At last. Good. On the way.
You got all hit.
I claim the right. My code compels me. To battle. Good idea. Yeah.
I want to kill this Earthshaker, I think.
Yes.
Oh, or Lich.
Yes.
Jug, no ulti.
So you say.
The enemy's top tower has fallen. Dire's structures are fortified.
I can cut him off if he goes down.
Ah, clear sailing now.
Okay.
Only problem. On guard. Okay. At last.
Let's push.
Okay.
Step lively now. Your admiral is on board.
Thanks.
Very well.
Man, I don't have. Oh, I keep not buying TP.
Ben, do you want TP bottom?
I don't have TP.
That's right.
We don't need to defend bottom. Do not defend bottom. Do not defend bottom. Just keep Keep up pressure, man. LG go bottom. That's so bad.
Oh my god. I've got strength now. Yo, I still have Timber Saw's up. No, I don't do this.
Forward.
Hey Gunter, your logic, you have some logic, but it's not. Just because you see Timber Saw ganking me twice there, does not mean that there is 100% a ward there. I mean, there's a good chance it's a ward there, but you can't say clearly it's warded. Well, no, you can't say it's clearly warded. Like, there's such thing as a coincidence, right?
Of course. Okay. Good. By the outcast blade.
Oh shit. Oh Jesus. Good thing facts and truth don't rely on opinions.
It's only proper. Agreed.
Thanks are in order.
So you say. I'll take my fee.
Oh my fucking god! There's 3 of you fuckers here?
Your top tower is under attack. Your top tower has fallen. Your top tower is under attack.
I'm gonna TP top the farm.
Radiant's courier has been
What the?
Right.
Your top tower is under attack.
That's a shot of 10.
I can't reach that Juggernaut.
Yes. Yes.
Hey Sharma, Namdota's fucking with you. He's memeing.
A good choice.
Hi Pixie, how you doing?
More the discipline. I'll do it. Good idea.
Haku. That guy is memeing. He's fucking with you.
Feel my blade.
Because you're in lane versus a joke and he spawned on The only reason. Everything else is like minuscule.
No, last fight.
Pure damage from Timber.
Pure damage has its own category.
That's right.
But you can't like reduce it. It's just pure. I'm saying like the reason he has so much magic damage all the time is because he just got spun on it over and over.
Bow down. Fight. Hey.
Step lively now. Your admiral is on.
At last.
I shall repay.
Your middle tower is under attack.
It's more.
Step lively now. Your admiral is on.
Why not?
Oh shit.
This is really tanky. Maybe I should come help him. Okay, you know what? I'm coming down, man. I'm coming down. Sorry, man. I should help you earlier.
My whole compelling. Not yet. Right.
Oh my fucking god.
Step lively now. Your admiral.
I thought he was dead, but he's so tanky. Oh, my mistake. I don't think I need a vessel to counter Timbersaw. You know why? Because when I crit him for 2,000 damage, it doesn't matter what his regen is.
To battle.
This is the real one right here. That's real, right? Venomancer?
Yes. One round.
Oh! Man, I just keep running around in circles. Fuck.
I troll your guts with my blade. Admiral is on board. Ooh, bounty!
Gold for me.
Gold from my chest.
I deserve this.
Your admiral is on board.
That's only a flesh wound. Yes. Yeah.
Their bottom. No.
Good idea. A good choice. Blink dagger. Aye. Aye.
I'm not sure we can kill him.
That's right.
Yeah.
Very well. Like the off-top blade. Okay. Good.
I'm gonna shove one wave top and then I'm gonna come.
I'll do it. Fight. I grow by degrees. It's fall.
Dire structures are fortified.
Bow down.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower has fallen.
I can do no less.
Radiant structures are fortified.
So you say.
Big.
At last. Of course. Run if you can. Aye. I'll do it. To battle. Good idea.
That guy, who you guys just timed out? No, just ban. You know, I've come to the conclusion that people who come into the stream and the first thing they say is something really toxic, they're just completely useless as people. Like not even, like they're not gonna contribute anything meaningful ever. You know, they're just too fucking to ever, like I don't even want them in my community. You know, no, they will contribute absolutely nothing. Not even gonna try to be like, oh, you should be a nice guy. No, we just ban.
Good choice. I can do no less. Feel my blade.
I might come to England maybe this summer.
Good. That's right. Agree? Double damage. I'll take that. Ah. Good enough.
Your bottom tower is under attack. Your bottom tower is under attack.
Oh my god. No, they didn't. What a nice little trap. Oh, this guy's so screwed, dude.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
BKB will do nothing for me here. But yeah, I need to buy BKB.
Bounty.
If you watch and don't contribute to the stream, is that okay? Yeah, that's fine. What I fucking hate is people who, hey, they watch and they think that they deserve something like, hey, Bluespan, I'm your fan. You have to play me for me, or else I don't subscribe. Like, they threaten me, or, you know, you have to do this. Like, no, I don't have to do shit for you. And not only are they just watching and not contributing anything, they just act like a shithead, you know? Like, no, you're... No, I don't care if you're in the stream or not. You know? You think you're something, but you're not.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower has fallen.
I am not yet beaten.
They are running back.
Why not? Attack!
Run.
Never cross me.
Let me take it.
At last.
CK, I'm watching you.
Forward.
Top, just get out, just get out.
Whoa, Venomancer. Are we...
Let him die, it's fine, just get out, cut our losses, don't go in, why are you going in, get out!
Shut the fuck up!
And I'm wrong. Good job. Good job. Sorry. Good job. Good job.
Your bottom tower has fallen.
Oh man, it's a DPS build, you know?
Yes.
Does he use Extra Slam?
Man, it just felt like we all kept beating over and over. And felt like the enemy team was really strong.
Your bottom tower
Does he have Echo
I
Slam?
wasn't sure about our true strength.
It's fine, man. Get back, Necropos. Get back.
Your bottom tower is under attack. Radiant structures are fortified.
Get out of mid. Leave mid.
A good choice.
Up here.
Good. That's right.
You should wait for me.
Degrees. On that.
Oh shit. Oh shit, they're very serious about this. But no, there's only 2 of them. How can they chase me with those 2? They can't.
Dire's structures are fortified.
The battle. Agreed. Daedalus! This is going to be absurd.
Get a PTP.
Good idea.
Your bottom tower is under attack.
Feel my
Chuck the wall.
Light up and under attack.
Which one's real one? This one? Huh?
Now down.
Listen.
Good job.
Oh my god. I saw that
That
space.
claims the right.
Finish Roche. Go finish Roche.
Echo Slam. I don't have Echo. I mean, I don't have God.
Actually,
Yo,
CK
I'm not.
series might be
I'm
fun.
really not
We're all
that
up, we're all
tanky.
On the way.
Someone else is tanky.
up.
Coming, baby.
Okay, thanks.
I'll take that. Very well.
Yo, I'm scared of this other shit, Kirkus. Okay, there he is.
Then you take it.
Okay.
Your shrine has fallen to the dark.
Back.
Let's try.
Right.
Let's creep up top. I'm almost agrees.
So you say. Good enough.
Let's have greaves. Let me find this
Yeah,
place.
you can have it.
Yep.
Okay. Of course.
Greaves.
Run if you can. It's more.
Go high ground. Fuck that shrine. We don't need to take it right now.
Now down.
Come top. Don't go shrine.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, submit. It's only proper.
Step lively now.
Aye.
Your admiral is on board.
There is no timber.
The enemy's top barracks has fallen.
Back so soon.
So you say. Right.
Way too deep, man.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I think I can kill both those guys if I just land stun.
The enemy's middle tower has fallen. The enemy's middle barracks has fallen.
So, let's see here. Actually, I can replace the Midas and the Echo Saver. Hey, aim your wards at the rack, okay? Yo, finish this fucking rack! Yo, man, finish the rack with your wards! XD. Yeah, no, I'm really confident with Sven.
We got 2 racks, and we have buybacks. This is fun.
Finally, I'm up. Onward. Yes. Good enough. Fight. Of course. Fall.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Right. That's right.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower has fallen. Radiant structures are fortified.
You fucking little shit!
Nice.
Why not?
The fuck?
Agreed. Regeneration. To battle. I take that.
Coin for me.
Okay. I claim the right.
No, I don't have God Strength though. That's okay. It's just 3 of them.
Yes.
Care that the healing ward's gonna reset everything for them. Get out, get out, get out, get out! Everyone get out if you can. Don't go back. What a fucking thought. So he doesn't have boots to travel, he doesn't have boots to travel, so Juggernaut shouldn't have Omni Slash. He should have used it last fight, okay. And we don't have Glyph though. Hey CK, it's okay to lose mid racks.
The racks, they can't get any more racks.
Yeah, no, it's okay to lose mid.
Your middle barracks are under attack. Your middle barracks has fallen. Your middle barracks are under attack. Your middle barracks has fallen.
Very well.
Quit!
At last. Not yet.
Oh, good job.
Good.
Where's this fucking cow, dude?
It's only proper. My code compels me.
This, go like this. Necro, come with
Good idea. Better yet.
I just can't get dueled here, and we should be okay.
Step lively now. Your admiral is on
Run if you can.
Yeah, as long as I don't get dueled, we're good.
Do it! Just do it!
You fucking little shit.
I'm under attack.
Oh my god. There's Elsie.
Okay.
Air shaker, dude. Air shaker.
Good idea.
The enemy's middle tower has fallen. The enemy's middle
Oh man, I want to fucking God Strength go in there again. There's nothing to go in on. Oh, damn it. Nice mid. GG, guys. Coach rating? We had a coach? Yeah, fuck you. You didn't do shit. Come into my game. Say nothing. Useful. Yeah. And then just disconnect. Why do you even queue? Damn, that Jugger's really farmed. You know, I actually find that Jug versus Sven is very interesting. Like they can both kill each other very easily. So I would actually say that it's a game of reflexes and decision making. Coach is in the chat. Thank you so much for your useful advice. Alright, this was my last game. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yeah, I'm gonna eat some food though. Oh. Welcome, Gavin. My pleasure. Oh, right, I do owe a Necro game, right? Thanks for Necro game. Oh, Snail Poop! This is your fault, man. You're supposed to remind me! My memory's terrible. How could you do this to me? How could you just give me money and not remind me? My bad, Snail Poop, my bad. How about tomorrow? Hey, Desco, haven't we been through this before? You keep begging to play together, and my answer to you hasn't changed. What size is that jar of mine? I mean, the water jug? You have to be specific here. What happened to the Necro game? What are you talking about? I already played Necros. Remember, we won by a lot. Sounds good, Snowpoop. Why Meeple player always use one item like 4 Ethereal or 4 Scotty? I'm pretty sure that's not how Meeple's played. But hey, when you're a Herald player, you'll see all sorts of shit. Doesn't mean it's good though. When I play my main account? Yes. It's so big. I know. Here, I'll show it to you, okay? Alright, well, here's the jug. Here's my head. Yeah, this is it's on my shoulder right now. That's the jug. That's my head. Yep. So here on the side view. So it's the volume is greater than my head. About that big. Am I finished for today? Yeah, Pixie, I am. Alright, Dave. Have a good night, buddy. Hey, Desco. Stop asking to party, okay? It's not gonna happen. Am I streaming tomorrow? Yeah, Jupiter, I am. Blue Love Jug. That else is new. That what? Oh yeah, no, I have all the hydration with this jug. Getting all scientifical up in her. Glad you got to see the last game, Pixie. How's your summer going? Are you doing much? Johan, yes, we are done for today. Well, come on, Johan. Try not to be late. Good to see you, too. Okay. I'm gonna get out of here. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the games today. Tomorrow's Thursday, right? Tomorrow Thursday? Yeah, tomorrow's Thursday. So I'll be back tomorrow around the same time. So it should be close to 8 a.m. Pacific time. Maybe 8:30. So I'll catch you guys then, okay? Have a great day, a great night, guys. Am I hitting the gym? Of course. Wonder why I play my immortal account again? Yes.